Hello and welcome live from Denmark. This is stage one of the Tour of Denmark. We ride from Aalborg to Aalborg. It's 192.2 kilometers, including the neutral. We've got 3 sprints towards the Sparekassen Danmark sprint, not a jersey, and then the Skoda bonus sprint where we have bonus points and bonus seconds. We have hills. They deliberately do not call them mountains. Another bonus sprint, and then 3 local laps around Aalborg of 6.5 kilometers. The profile might be slightly deceiving, but we'll get into that a little bit later. First attacks straight away from some of the local teams. Crashes as well. One of the Flanders Baloise riders hitting the deck there. A little bit of carnage there on the side of the road. Hopefully everybody manages to continue. And this is the formation of the breakaway of the day. 2 riders of the SWAT Club are joining these 3 Danish riders up front, and that makes a breakaway of 5. The names are on your screen. Everybody's name starts with M apart from one, and that is Daniel Stampe. He's kind of just ruining the algorithm here a little bit. Welcome to the Tour of Denmark, stage 197.2 kilometers, just shy of 1,200 meters of elevation. And we have ourselves a breakaway of 5 riders with, about halfway in, 94.3 kilometers to go. Here we are on the Slettestrand, where we had an intermediate sprint. We also had some sprints towards a secondary classification, no jersey, but a trip to the podium there. And we've got sprints for the bonus seconds, 3, 2 and 1, and 10, 6 and 4 on the line. My name is Jose Bain. With me this week is Michael Hutchinson. Michael, a rather flat stage, although if you look at the profile, this might be a medium mountain stage somewhere in the center of France.
Yeah, I love it when they do that with the profile, Jose. You look at it and think, oh, it's kind of like a classic. You go, no, it's not. Mind you, there's a hill on the finishing circuit. We've got 3 laps of the finishing circuit, which is only 6.5 kilometers around. There's a hill on that goes up to 16%. It's not terribly long, but it is pretty steep. And the last descent of that's only 3.8 kilometers before the finish. So, yeah, you never know. Yeah, Wout van Aert might fancy doing Wout van Aert stuff on it. We'll see.
Well, you have already named him. Wout van Aert is back in the race. Of course, he had to pull out. Well, he didn't start the Tour de France. He, of course, had that crash on that time trial bike just before the Tour Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes. That got inflamed. Pretty nasty infection, actually. Pretty dangerous situation in the end. So, yeah, he couldn't do the Tour de France. He went to the Dolomites to do some training, and then is now preparing in this race for what is going to be the Vuelta. This must be recorded images of the bonus sprint that we now have. There we go, yes. Mes Lambo taking 5 points, 3 bonus seconds ahead of Matthias Malmberg and Manuel Oyoli. Like I said, we got these bonus sprints. The last one is at 19.4 kilometers. And if you know that 2 years ago, Michael, the difference between the numbers 1 and 2 was 1 second between Arnaud Delis and Magnus Kort. Well, you can imagine that those bonus seconds might come in handy later on.
Could do. And actually, this is a slightly unusual edition of the Tour of Denmark. It doesn't have a time trial, which is unusual because it has done every year in every edition in recent years. It's had a time trial, or a couple of years ago they had a team time trial. It's usually an individual time trial. Since they don't have that this year, the bonus seconds all the more likely to be in play.
We have a couple of former winners here, including Christophe Laporte and also Wout van Aert. Niklas Larsen is here. He won the race in 2019. And if we go back all the way to 2015, we find Chris Juliensen as a former winner of this race. The record holder is a certain Mess Pedersen, but yeah, he might still be tired from doing Mess Pedersen things basically each and every day in the Tour de France. Give the man a break. Give the man a little break.
He didn't do the Tour last year, and he came here to get ready for the Vuelta. And I was covering this race last year, and it was the Mats Pedersen show. He won 3 stages, 3 different ways. It was very classy. And I'm slightly sad he's not here this year because I love watching him racing, but it might be a more open race for him currently kind of doing the post-tour criteriums around kind of Holland and Belgium.
Here? No, he was up north where I'm now in the Netherlands in Surhuis de Veen. Try pronouncing that one in Friesland. So yeah, that was great fun. But yeah, post-crit criteriums are those kind of races, Michael, where Richard Carapaz beats Mess Pedersen in a sprint.
I have done 1 or 2 races that were arranged a lot like that.
I will never forget, they had one of these races in Germany, I think, quite a while ago. And there was one guy who did not get the briefing, or he just decided to ignore the briefing. So there was like 5 or 7 of these Tour de France riders that cost quite a lot of money to get to your criterium. And then this completely unknown guy from Germany won the bike race. I can imagine that in the post-race briefing, things were getting heated with the organizer and that specific rider, because that's a no-go, isn't it?
I've done more races like that on the track than the road, but yeah, I have once or twice been told by an organizer that, you know, I can race it whatever way I want, but if I beat Bradley Wiggins in the sprint, I won't get invited back next year.
We had our bonus sprint at the Schletterstrand. If you're watching this from either Belgium or the Netherlands, yes, you can snicker, because in Dutch this is a very funny word. I will not go into that, but there's Google for you there. Michael is looking at me, he's like, yeah, explain. No, I can't. You know, there's kids watching. There's kids watching this. But it's a funny name. Those were bonus seconds, we just did that. And what I found remarkable, well, first of all, let's get into, well, there's a few teams here, Michael, that we might not be all too familiar with, the continental teams from Denmark. But there's actually a World Tour team here that we are very familiar with, but that we might not recognize.
Yeah, so Uno X Mobility have turned up, well, it's on the screen right now. In fact, that unexpected green and multicolored kit is Uno X Mobility, who are dressed funny for this race.
They announced a new sponsor this year to add to their jersey. Of course, they're quite recognizable yellow and red jersey. It's called Faxe Kondi. It's a Danish soft drinks producer, and it comes in the green with the rainbow color. It's not a full rainbow, there's a color missing, but that's what they turn up for in this race with Carl Fredrik Beaufort, Ellen Blikra, Storm, Ingebrigtsen, Alex Kamp, William Bloemenlevy, Henrik Pedersen, and of course Rasmus Tiller. That is the team here for Uno X Mobility. So don't go looking for them in their recognizable kit. They are in green, which in this peloton, if you look from this helicopter shot, Michael, it is actually a standout jersey again.
Yeah, they've done well. I saw that was going to be their colors off the start sheet, because you got the little printed shirt. I thought, oh, we're never going to see those guys. But no, looks good in this peloton. You can see them brilliantly. So yeah, why not?
They have a good track record of good jerseys, because I also really love what they did with the 7-Eleven jersey. I still sometimes see that jersey riding around around where I ride.
They do nice national champions jerseys as well, because obviously they have quite a few Scandinavian national champions in, and they do lovely big jerseys with lovely big flags on them. Big
crosses on them, because both Norway with on the Skarset and the Danish national champion, of course, Magnus Kort, who's not racing here. You can imagine why. He did the Tour de France. But yeah, in his last year in the pro peloton, Magnus Kort, former winner here in Denmark, sadly not on the start line. But yeah, the Tour is, what, 5 days ago? 3? It's a little bit.
3, 4. It depends whether you count the last day, really.
Well, it was a pretty hard stage, that last one.
Yeah, for some. Not others, but for some.
Well, but that last stage, that will go down in the history books, because, well, if you haven't watched, I cannot imagine you have not watched it, or you haven't seen that finish. But please do. And if you have seen it, you can watch it at least 10 times more. It is that good. But let's get back to this race, where we have a shot here of our breakaway. Let's properly introduce them to you. Oh, this is not our breakaway. We do have one guy of that team in the breakaway, but we're all the way at the back of the bunch there with one of the riders of Giefer-Stil. I think that is the way to pronounce it, with Axel Scott Hansen. It's a peloton of 145 riders. We've got 21 teams, including the national team of Denmark, where we find some World Tour pros like Chris Juul Jensen, the former winner, Kasper Pedersen, Rasmus Pedersen, Gustav Wang and Anders Follegger, the winner of Brabantse Pijl, and two of the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe rookies with Noah Müller-Andersen and Theodor Clemensen. So a pretty good team. But the two teams that we see, or the three teams at the front, are also the teams with the sprinter types for today.
Yeah, a little track on the front at the minute. They've got Tim Toyn Teutenberg here, and it's a finish that would suit him pretty well. Team Visma, Lisa Bike, well, Wout van Aert, or if you want, Christophe Laporte. Either of them can sprint pretty usefully. And Team Flanders Baloise, who are the yellow and blue, who've got Tom Krabbe, who has been one of the real stars of the year in the kind of Northern European sprinty stage races. He's had a cracking year. And I think that team winds up at the end of this year. Have I got that right, Jose? I think they're losing their sponsor.
Rumours are that he is moving to the Pinarello squad.
Yeah, I'd heard he'd got a lot of offers from different teams, because he's a very classy rider, and his team are showing an awful lot of faith in him for today. That last climb is 3.8 kilometers to go, so there will be other teams certainly trying to put them under pressure there. But he more than likely is going to get over it, I would have thought. And we ought to have quite a good sprint today, I hope, from quite a big bunch.
For Christophe Laporte, it's his first race back since the Amstel Gold Race, actually.
Yep.
So we're talking, what, mid-April?
Mid-April, like yeah. He tore a quad or something, didn't he, in a training crash? Have I got that right? I think I've got that right.
Yes. After an absolute phenomenal spring season by him.
Yeah.
Fourth in Nieuwsblad, third in Flanders Fields or Gent-Wevelgem, seventh Dwars door Vlaanderen, ninth Tour of Flanders, fifth in Paris-Roubaix, and then he didn't finish Amstel Gold Race. Was going to, he was on that shortlist for the Tour de France squad for Visma Lease Bike, and then Taurus quad, which is a very painful injury. And for Wout van Aert, we of course mentioned that before. This is his first race back, basically after winning that stage on the 11th of June in the Tour Auvergne Rhône-Alpes or Dauphiné.
Yeah, and actually the Visma Lease Bike here with Van Aert and Christophe Laporte, who both missed the Tour de France. You think, the strength and depth of the Visma Lease Bike team, because they didn't take by any stretch of the imagination a weak team to the Tour de France, to be missing Christophe Laporte and Wout van Aert. So good to see them both back racing here, though. Perfect timing, Wout on the screen for us.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of a nature break there on the side of the road for Wout, and he's now making his way back to the front of the peloton. We still got 86.8 kilometers left to do. We're just past the halfway point.
They're
keeping them. Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jose, they're keeping the brake on a pretty tight leash. I mean, this seems to be the way in the last 2 or 3 years. Brakes don't get as much runway as they used to, because I think the biggest the gap's ever been has been less than 2 minutes all day. So they're clearly determined not to let them get too far.
You're the Map Man, which is, by the way, a fantastic YouTube channel if you want some good videos on maps. To British guys make videos, but they are the Map Man. But of course, Michael is my Map Man here. What is the course like, and how are we with wind and that sort of thing?
Well, it's basically a big anti-clockwise loop, heads up north onto the North Jutland Island. The start-finish town of Aalborg is right on the northern edge of the kind of continental piece of the Jutland Peninsula, which is sort of the mainland. Oh, hang on.
Oh, we have a crash here. Two of the riders for NSN. Oh, one of the riders is... we have a big tangle of bikes going on here. 192 is Luca Benetsen. He's still on the deck there. 156 is Asker Sørensen. 91 is
Carpenter.
Indeed. Luckily, they are getting back to their feet easily. Number 34, Dion Smith. And then his teammate is holding his hand in that particular position. 192 we have out there as well. I already mentioned him, and I just missed that
Ezra
number
Cadel.
of Ezra Cadell, one of the tallest riders out there. That is very unfortunate. That typical position of holding your wrist there for Ezra Cadell. Yeah, we can't really see what happened there. Might be a little bit of touch of wheels.
I think
Bottles
probably
going everywhere.
Just a touch of wheels back in the group. We haven't just been through a feed, had we? Oh no, there's a feed coming up, so no, it wasn't that. I probably just a touch of wheels. It is quite windy today. We were talking about the route, and we've got this kind of big loop, and we are on the western side of it, heading south and into sort of a southeasterly direction. So a southwesterly wind means we're coming into a crosswind section around about now. In fact, I think this left turn that the brake is taking they're going to take us into a crosswind section, so clearly that wasn't the crash. But yeah, we've got a few kilometers now where it's going to be crosswindy, so I will, as I regularly do, get a bit overexcited about the prospect of that breaking things up. Probably won't, but there is about 20 kilometers an hour breeze coming from the right for the next 15-20 kilometers.
And it's quite open and exposed.
It is.
For a little bit of
and you can already see actually the breaker kind of assuming the echelette position, so
love
it might have a bit of influence. We'll see.
Baby echelon.
Exactly.
This is one of the two riders of the SWAT Club, or Solo Vantaggio Club. That is what SWAT Club actually means. It's a cycling community from Italy. They have absolutely fantastic jerseys and bikes. Manuel Oioli is the 23-year-old Italian. His teammate is also in the breakaway. That is Matthias Malmberg, 25-year-old from Denmark. The other riders also from Denmark here, with 157 Daniel Stampe, the oldest of the five, with a nice aerodynamic setup there. And then we have Mes Landbo of Team Colo Quick, and the youngest of the five is Marius Hobolt of the Team Give Steel. So that is our breakaway of the day. Look at that, they even have got matching Ridley frames in that dark green colour. That is eye for detail.
Oh, they've absolutely gone for it. And actually showing a bit of interest at the front, because of course they've got Erlen Blikra, who is back after his unpleasant crash at the Giro. He crashed on stage 1, stage 2, can't remember.
Yeah.
It was in
all the way back in Bulgaria, that big pile-up in the final.
Rode the next 7 or 8 stages with a fractured vertebra and fractured ribs and things that they didn't discover until afterwards. So he's nice to see him back in the peloton, but he would also be a man for the finish today.
Let's see if that is indeed the card they are going to play, because they've got a few fast men always, of course, on the Uno-X Mobility team. Same goes for the Alpecin Premitech team. They have the likes of Thibaut Del Grosso, Jensen Plowright to do well here, Henry Ulich, the German rider. So they have some options there with Alpecin Premitech as well. If we look at the World Tour teams that are present here, we have, of course, Lidl Trek. We have Alpecin Premitech, Lotto Intermarché, NSN Cycling Team, Picnic PostNL. Only 5 riders lined up for Picnic PostNL, but they do have Casper van Uden here, who, could be the rider who gets their 2nd victory of the year. I think we're only at 1 just yet with Casper van Uden in Turkey. Visma Lease Bike, Uno-X Mobility, those are the 7 World Tour teams. We've got the Pro 2 teams, so the 2nd division with Bardiani, CSF, MBH Bank, CSB, Telecom, the Italians, Modern Adventure Pro. Sadly, we already saw them on the deck with Ezra Cadell and Robin Carpenter. Flanders Baloise, Novo Nordisk, of course, very important race to them because Novo Nordisk, the pharmaceutical company, is based in Denmark. Polti Visit Malta and the Unibet Rose Rockids. And then we have the Danish continental teams, SWAT Club, Lucky Sport, which is a team from Sweden, and Denmark, the national team from Denmark, led by Michael Mørkø.
The Danish national team is a decent team, actually. More often than not in national tours, the national team is a sort of a development team or in a slightly funny ragbag of riders, because you're allowed to do that. But actually, the Danish national squad here is got some quality to it.
Let's see if there is interest or enough wind to try and do something up here. Yeah, they seem awfully nervous out there.
I think there's I mean, I think maybe that was the root of that crash, was just an urge to sort of make sure of trying to get to the front when we made that left turn into this crosswind section. We're going to go down. We're going to go over a bridge over the strait between the peninsula and the North Jutland Island.
Because we were in the midst of going over the course, Michael, when we had that crash. So maybe we can do that again. It's like, what do we still have in store in terms of road, wind, mountains / hills? What does this race look like? Well, the gap is dropping below the minute mark as we speak. The
gap's coming down quite quickly. Yeah, no, when we get over that strait, which you will be able to see in the distance, there's a bridge straight in front of us, which we're going to go over in a couple of kilometres' time. We're then kind of going from sort of anti-clockwise from sort of 8 o'clock round to 4 o'clock, if that makes sense, around the bottom of the clock. Nothing terribly hilly there, a few lumps and bumps. None of this is really absolutely quite as flat as it looks, but we get to the finishing circuit, which we're going to enter at 22 kilometres to go. We've got three quite tough climb, three times up, quite a tough climb on the finishing circuit, which we'll see. Going to be mainly tailwind. We're going to have crosswind for the next few kilometres, then we turn kind of round to the left again. It's going to be tailwind, so it's going to be quite a fast run in towards that finishing circuit, and I'm just kind of wondering when we're going to end up catching this break, because we're under a minute with 81 kilometres to go, and I can't imagine there are very many of the teams want to have this break back at 60 kilometres to go, but the way they're going at the minute, that's what's going to happen. It may calm down a bit when we get past the crosswind section, which is going to last until about 68 kilometres to go, but that's still another 13 kilometres. It's yeah, interesting development if that happens.
I would like it.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy to watch it. I'm just would slightly prefer not to have to ride in it, because it'll all kick off again.
And it wasn't a break that was established within the first kilometre either. Like we saw in some of the Tour de France stages, it took over an hour actually before we ended up with these 5 strong guys. This is the feed zone. We have the Lidl Track team, a little bit of a mix there of their Devo riders and their World Tour riders. And like you said, Tim Thorn Teutenberg, of course, a strong sprinter. What do you think that somebody like Søren Kragh Andersen can do on this finishing circuit?
I kind of feel like it's probably going to be a bit too much of a big old sprint for him, if I'm honest, but he's got that. I mean, that finishing circuit's a little bit classic-y in its feel. It's got this hill. The hill is narrow, and there's a left turn onto it that is quite narrow. So we're going to have that kind of classics positioning fight 3 times to get into that. And as I've said before, the last time up that climb, it's inside 4 kilometres to go. So there are opportunities, I think, for those kind of slightly more classic riders to maybe try and put the sprinters under a bit of pressure there. I just worry that the hill's not quite long enough. At 16%, it's steep enough, but it's, I mean, this hill, it's the whole climb is about 700 meters long. On the steep bit's really only a couple of 100 meters. It reminded me a little bit of the Barcelona stage, the second stage of the Tour this year, where we had a finishing circuit with 3 quite steep climbs on it.
That's the double the length.
Yeah. But the climb was steeper, it was longer. That's the stage that Pogačar gifted to Isaac Del Toro. But it looks like that in the profile, but it's just not that hard.
It all depends on the run-in towards that climb, because on Friday we're going to the Kiddersweg again, which is that very narrow, steep climb in Vejle. The Queen stage is on Friday. In itself, if you would just put it right here, that climb, it would be fine. But taking, I think it's a right-hander, taking that, and then it suddenly narrows down, and it's all about positioning before that climb. Yeah, that is a totally different ball game.
Yeah, and the descent off this climb is pretty much straight. It's quick, but it's almost straight. And the run-in today, we'll talk about it. Well, we'll see it because we've got 3 laps. We'll see they run into the finish line a couple of times before we have the finish. It's a very straightforward. It's a very straightforward descent, and then a very flat, straight run-in for the last couple of kilometres to the line. So again, that doesn't really help anyone who's trying to break things up on the climb.
I'm not really under the impression that this peloton is particularly slowing down at this point.
No, it doesn't look. It doesn't look like there's a particularly sort of committed chase organised, but they're just reeling this break in all the same.
I don't know. Have you ever tried the like fizzy drink that is Faxe Kondi in Denmark? The green bottles.
I'm gonna have to say no.
No, neither have I. It might be comparable to like a national drink like Irn-Bru kind of stuff.
Irn-Bru.
Irn-Bru. Sorry.
I agree that's not how it's spelled, but that's.
Oh, I'm not Scottish. Well, neither are you, but you're a little bit closer to the source of the Irn-Bru.
I'm from Northern Ireland. It's quite a big drink there too. So yeah.
I actually like it.
Okay.
You look at me. You look at me in disgust now.
Well done, you.
Oh boy, we can't be friends anymore now, I think. I've ruined it. The boys in the pink helmets are, of course, the Unibet Rosa Rockets here with the Kopecky brothers. Niklas Larsson, former winner in 2019. Wessel Maurits, Martin Rasenberg. Irish champion Rory Townsend is here, and the Slovakian champion Lukas Kubic, who could also find a good course, but course to his liking here on those circuits. Luckily for him, he managed to keep the jersey in Slovakia. I think nobody would even recognize him in a normal Unibet Rosa Rockets jersey anyways. Like, who's that guy? We have no idea.
He's ridden well here in the past, I think, so yeah.
.77 kilometers ago for our 5 breakaway riders. I'll give you the names again. At the front of the race, we have Mes Landbo, 21-year-old of the Coloquit team. If you look at the results, that is the best rider. He's the national time trial champion of Denmark in the under-23s. Was also 5th in the elite championship. We have the man from Givesteel, and that is Marius Holbolt. He's 20, first time here in the Tour of Denmark, and also the youngest of our breakaway. The 2 SWAT Club riders with Manuel Oyoli, the 23-year-old Italian, and Matthias Malmberg, the 25-year-old Danish rider. And then the last man in the blue and black is Daniel Stamper of the Bornholm team. Luckily, we have our resident Scot tuning in, Michael, Brian Smith, who is, of course, an expert in Irn-Bru, you can imagine. But he's actually tasted it. He says it tastes a little bit like Sprite, the Faxe Kondi.
Yeah, I have drunk it. It's a distinctive flavour, and it's an outrageous colour. Actually, the most memorable thing about it is the colour, not the flavour, because it's a lurid orange colour. And this is the bridge over the strait back onto the continental bit of the Jutland Peninsula.
Yeah, because Denmark, of course, is many, many islands. Which of the islands are we on?
I think it's just known as the North Jutland Island in English. I'm
not
sure I can't
it was not a quiz question. It was.
Yeah,
but
yeah. It was kind of, this whole area was very Viking-y at one point during the Viking Age. This was a kind of a tremendous point at which to launch Viking raids across the North Sea into.
Were those the guys that
more or less where I'm sitting at the minute, quite honestly.
Yeah, was that the guys who basically just completely destroyed your hometown?
Yeah, they didn't do that much damage to Cambridge. They sacked the island of Lindisfarne, which was a monastery in
of course, yeah, the monks.
786. I can't remember absolutely the year. Weirdly, I can remember it was in June, but it was in the 8th century.
Random.
They arrived one June afternoon and killed all the monks and stole everything. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't as friendly as I associate from the Danes, but that was an attack that was launched from places like here, and that brought in the Viking Age in Northern Europe, where Denmark and Sweden and Norway basically ruled everything.
The date was actually June 8, 793.
Right.
And the Lindisfarne Priory, yeah, well, really, really well. Some chronicles mentioned 6, 7, some chronicles mentioned 6, 7. I'm spending a lot of time with very young cyclists in a youth tour that I'm volunteering at this week. And I thought that the 6, 7 height was basically over, but no, it's not.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
The Limfjord turns out to be the name of the strait between the island and the mainland. I've been trying to find that out earlier today, and it's an incredibly difficult thing to find out. It's called the Limfjord, apparently. But now we're back onto the actual bit of the Jutland Peninsula that's attached to the rest of Europe. Oh, another crash. Danish national squad.
This is Pedersen. Rasmus Solberg Pedersen. I find it always very convenient if riders are racing for their national team that they just keep the helmets of their trade team on, which makes recognizing them usually quite easy.
Yeah, and almost always riding their squad bikes, which certainly helps in a circumstance like that. They seemed to get up relatively quickly, didn't look. No enormous concern, I have to say, from the
what is happening?
Team staff.
Oh, look at that speed there, Michael.
Yeah,
might there be a little opportunity to create some chaos here?
I think that's maybe I'm not quite sure if that's what anyone's trying to do, or if there's just a real anxiety that that's what's going to happen, which is just what's propelling this group at such speed, because we were down to this kind of margin a few kilometres ago, and then it stretched back out to about a minute, and suddenly it's tumbled by another 23, 24, 25 seconds. And yes, this is pressure being applied now. The team's trying to take advantage of this crosswind section. They haven't achieved anything so far with it, but you can see the wind direction from the windmills in the background.
And our gap is basically melting away. It's a hot day here in the north of Europe. We're still at the height of summer. I think most people are kind of tired of the heat waves that are basically consecutive every week, every 10 days nowadays. We find Thibaut Del Grosso at the front. Yes, we have a little bit of echelon action. Some riders caught out there. Of course, our rider involved in the crash is caught out. Rasmus Pedersen, also one of the rookies. 202 is Clemensen. Rebel Bora Hansgrohe rookies.
So I was mistaking the Bethlehem Bornholm kit for the Alpecin kit. It's not completely different. But we certainly have Thibaut Del Grosso and Wout van Aert on the front, pushing the pace in the peloton, and this is exactly what they were trying to achieve.
And that means that the gap to our breakaway of 5 has now melted away to just 22 seconds. When you see Visma Lease Bike with the likes of Wout van Aert and Laporte at the front of the bunch, yeah, that is trouble. Also Thibaut Del Grosso, like you said, Alpecin de Koning also reporting. There's a little bit of elevation even if you look at the riders at the front.
Yeah, it looks pan flat. When you look at that kind of helicopter shot, it looks dead flat, but it just kind of does this the whole time, just these little rises and falls. None of it, you know, for a rider at this level, none of it counts as a hill, but it doesn't make the job of these guys in the break any easier at this point when the pace is on behind. And the pace is still being driven pretty hard here.
You spot Rasmus Tiller there in 5th position, helping out in the chase there. Same with the SWAT club, trying to disturb whatever disturbance they can still add in this moment. But yeah, tiding is clear. Our breakaway is almost caught at 71k from the line, and that's even sooner than you said it would be at 60k.
Yeah. To be fair, when I said 60k, I thought actually if it's going to happen, it will be sooner than that. I mean, we are this crosswind section wraps up at about 66, 67 k's to go, where we're going to sort of turn left, and it's going to then be more or less a headwind run to the finish. But of course, that relief's come too late for the break.
Big group here with the riders of the Modern Adventure Pro Cycling Team, with Robin Carpenter here with 91, was involved in that crash. 97 is Paul Wright. Quite a lot of riders of Lotto Intermarché as well. They are here with Toon Aerts.
Teutenberg in the second group, actually. So, a little bit surprising.
Oh, what is happening here? What is happening with these crashes?
Ooh,
oh
that's
my.
horrible. That's horrible.
And this is a crash all across the road here. Some of the riders even ending up in the ditch there on the left-hand side. One of the Unibet Rose rockets is there on the left-hand side of the road. There he is. The right-hand side, if you were watching this, I hope that they neutralize this, because this is absolute carnage out on the road here. We need assistance, we need mechanics. What is happening here, Michael? Can we see? Yeah, it's one of the Modern Adventure Pro Cycling riders, and then it's basically dominoes.
Yeah, well, it's everybody's riding really tight, and it's in the crosswinds, and there's a lot, you know, the fight per position is almost continual, and everyone's nervous because there's already been one fracture, and you can just see a lot of riders down the road completely blocked. Just hoping everybody gets up. And the minute, of course, the ambulances, medical staff, team cars, everything is for the moment is stuck behind this. So there's every chance I would have thought they'll neutralise this.
Yes, but that is, of course, a decision that you cannot take in a split second. You have to get onto your commissaire, your colleague commissaires, to the race organisers, to the UCI safety manager. It's not snap of the finger decision that you can do. So everybody's trying to continue as soon as possible.
Most of the majority of the riders are kind of up, and there are a lot of there's going to be fewer riders left sitting than I was expecting, but yeah.
Is unhappy here, Chris Juul Jensen, winner of the 2015 edition. Yeah, he's asking for a mechanic because that is completely stuck. There's one Alpecin Premier Tech rider still there on the deck. All the other riders seem to be back in a vertical position.
Apart from that Alpecin rider, everybody else has got up, although there are quite a few of them over by the crash barrier, clearly just gathering themselves. Oh, look at the chaos, the bottles and the...
And we continue at the front of the race. Of course, when things are not neutralized, when they don't hear over the race radio that the race is neutralized, the race is on.
Absolutely. Yeah,
let's see if we can...
That's what these guys have to do.
Let's see if we can spot Wout van Aert. Of course, he's got a distinctive helmet. I see 3 riders there for Visma Lease bike, not a Red Bull helmet just yet.
I think Thibaut Del Grosso's in that group. I can see him further down. Is that Rasmus Tiller?
Rasmus Tiller most definitely is in that first group. This must be the second group now, with Toon Aerts there with number 21. Also Felix Orn Christoph. Yeah, Juul Jensen is continuing. Our unfortunate Alpecin rider still on the deck. It might be that they just heard over the race radio that we are neutralizing, judging from Rasmus Tiller here at the front of the race. It might be self-neutralizing, so deciding that, yeah, this is the moment.
Well, and that's also as the left turn. That's the end of the crosswind section, which may also be a little part of the pace still on here.
Yeah, they have restarted again. And I don't see Wout van Aert in this group. I spot one Red Bull helmet, but that is one of the Danish riders of the national team of the Red Bull rookies. And that means that, yeah, here on stage 1 of the Tour of Denmark, welcome to everybody joining us from the Tour de l'Ain. You have entered the race in a little bit of chaos a couple of kilometers ago. About 30th position, we had one of the riders of Modern Adventure Pro going down and complete dominoes across the width of the road. One Unibet Rose Rockets rider even tumbled into the ditch on the side of the road. Almost all of the riders stood back up, apart from one Alpecin Premier Tech rider, but we've got several groups up there. The race has not been neutralized, as you can see, although there seems to be a little bit of indecisiveness in the groups. We saw Rasmus Tiller kind of trying to neutralize this first group, but yes, that is the situation with 67 kilometers to go. It's a stage in total of 197, a loop on Noord Jutland, between Aalborg and Aalborg. We had a breakaway of 5 riders with 4 Danes and 1 Italian. They never really got more than a minute 40. There is Wout van Aert. And they were caught just before we had that crash at 71 kilometers in a crosswind section where things were quite nervous, Michael.
everything was happening at once because we had a crosswind section, we had the race being put under a lot of pressure in that crosswind section and breaking up into echelons. Then we caught the brake almost so soon as we caught the brake, Jose. We had that big crash which completely blocked the road. Happily, most of the riders did seem to get up and get going again, but as we saw from the helicopter shot we had a moment ago, there are 4 or 5 groups spread over nearly probably a kilometre's worth of the road at the minute, and it's absolute chaos.
This is that second group, isn't it? The group with Wout van Aert and Lucas Kubis.
It's certainly a group with Wout van Aert in it. I think it's the second group we're going to see in a second, I'm sure.
Because in the first group we have at least 3 Visma Lease bike riders with Christophe Laporte. So this is the chasing group. Let's see. Yeah, there we have the first group. It's a wide open landscape here, and that's why everybody's kind of nervous, kind of anxious there when we had a wind from the right-hand side of the road, about 20 kilometers an hour wind speed. I do get the impression that they are riding on.
Yeah, the race is going. You can see we haven't seen a team car for several minutes now, because the team cars were firstly stuck behind the crash, then servicing the riders, and now all stuck behind the last group on the road. And they're not going to let the team cars through until the race situation has clarified itself. So we've just got neutral service in behind. But yeah, this is the first group, and they're definitely riding.
Thibaut Grosso represented in this first group. Also Noah Müller-Andersen of the Danish national team. We have a national team here with a few World Tour pros, including former winner Chris Juul Jensen. Other winners, former winners on the start line here are Christophe Laporte, who's back in the racing, first time since the Amstel Gold Race. Niklas Larsen, who won in 2019. Wout van Aert is a former winner of this race, and that was 8 years ago. And yeah, Juul Jensen, those are the former winners on the start line. The other former winners were kind of busy with bossing the Tour de France, especially Mess Pedersen, 3 times winner, including last year. Arnaud Delis, who was not particularly bossing the Tour de France, but hopefully he'll be back to his full strength soon. Evenepoel was absolutely bossing the Tour de France, winner of 2021. I remember on the last stage he lapped the peloton in a solo on a particularly flat day on the final day of the Tour of Denmark. So yeah, big riders. Michael Valgren, also a former winner here in recent years. So some big winners here in recent years in Denmark.
Jakob Fuglsang, who won it in 2008, 2001. I won it 3 times in the late 2000s. He retired at this race last year, but he's very much a man of the Tour of Denmark as well. Sadly for some riders, and very sad for Michael Hutchinson, is that we don't have a time trial this year. No, and the Tour of Denmark is one of those races I think I can depend on for a time trial. But no time trial. Had a team time trial 2 years ago, which didn't, which kept some of the time gaps lower. But normally this race is not necessarily decided by the time trial, but the time trial has a real influence. Jakob Soderquist won the time trial last year. It's an absolutely terrific result for him, one of his first big results. He's back here this year with Little Trek, but he won the time trial and finished second in the GC. But actually rode brilliantly over the last couple of stages. Having got the GC position from the time trial, he rode very, very well over the last couple of days. It was a real breakthrough race for him. Luckily for you, Michael, you've got the Tour of Portugal on your planning with Jess Cox, and you have not 1 but 2 time trials there. Yes, I have a time trial there and a prologue, which starts next Wednesday, I think, today week. In Lisbon, so that is a first for us here, where you're watching your cycling, showing the Volta Portugal after the Grand Tour, so 21 days. That is the longest stage race that we have. 8 days of racing in Portugal. So if you want to see what really happens on the... It's more than that. It's 11 days of racing in Portugal. That's what I said. It's long enough to have a rest day. It has a rest day indeed, and it has the iconic stage to the Senhora da Graça. So yeah, a lot of history is always written in Portugal, and there's always a lot of stories coming from that race. The 2 groups, they're almost back together. So the second group there with Wout van Aert, the big star here, who's coming back to racing after leaving the Tour Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, or the Dauphiné, if you don't want to trip over all these words like I just did.
He wants to fine-tune his form ahead of the Vuelta, and then of course his big goal of the season, and that is the World Championships in Quebec. And he hopes to to do well. He's won the stage. He won this race in 2018, like I said, and he would like to do it again.
Yeah, I think the front group are kind of sitting up a little bit here. Certainly they've taken their foot off the gas because they're aware that second group's coming back, and I think there have probably been a few teams who are in this front group who've just been a bit conflicted about whether they really wanted that group to stay away. So the groups, I think, are going to come back together. 43 seconds, if that's the current gap, is a little bit bigger than it looked from the shot we had a second ago. But does seem to be coming down. A lot of quite small roads. The early sections of this stage were on kind of quite big highways, but we've got an awful lot of quite twisty, slightly rolling rural roads here, back on the southern section of the course, back on the continental part of the Jutland Peninsula.
This is what is still in store. We have a hill sprint. They deliberately do not call it the mountain classification in the Tour of Denmark. I think the longest we have is about 1.2 kilometers. That is about the longest hill that we have, and that is today at 42.9 kilometers. Then we still have an intermediate sprint for bonus seconds, and then actually 3 climbs on the local circuits, because we're doing the local circuit 3 times, but 2 times towards the King of the Mountains, or the King of the Hills competition, sponsored here by Novo Nordisk, which is one of the biggest companies in the world, and, well, one of the driving forces behind the income of the country of Denmark, the gross domestic product, the GDP. And that is thanks to mostly Ozempic.
Another little split at the front of this group. It's a real kind of, the race is really just trying to get itself organised again. There was kind of a funny reset after that crash. And this gap has just stretched out really quite quickly here, Jose.
Mm-hmm. We have Jakob Söderqvist up there.
We were talking about a second ago. Yep.
With Teutenberg, the German rider. And then in those referee jerseys is Kohler Quick with Morten Arling Nordhoft, former rider of Visma Lease Bike Development. And then one more rider yet to be identified. But the pace is most definitely up, and we still have a few. I hope that is a barrier there for the cows, because they seemed that they were going right onto the course there. That would have caused more problems.
That's the second group coming across, which is why no one was too concerned about the group drifting off the front with Tim Teutenberg in it.
Yeah, 4 riders trying to break free from that chasing group with Kubiš and Wout van Aert might not be the smartest move. Maybe just better to work together as a group instead of 4 riders trying to bridge across.
I think maybe just a group at the front pushing on a little harder than maybe somebody in 5th wheel thought was necessary. So whoever was sitting 5th wheel just lets the wheel go on the basis that you're all going to get to the same place eventually. Because you can sort of see there's not much urgency here now.
Nah.
They're not waiting for that group, but it's not an advantage. They're trying to stick home, and we're going to start getting the counter-attacks, obviously. Because there's time for another breakaway.
Yeah, why not? We still have 60k to go. We're just about 70% in, so 1/3 left to do of this first stage in Denmark. Pretty long stages this week. Tomorrow we go 182, the Queen stage even over 200. On Saturday we got 172, and then on Sunday a really short one of just 126. This is that second group. The time indicates it's about 23 seconds. Let's see if we can zoom out just a little bit there with the helicopter to see what the actual difference is at the moment. Gustav Wang is the man of the Norwegian team. Yeah, this is workable. this should
Yeah,
be okay.
and they've got a handy motorbike to tow them across, just towing them no harm at all. But I mean, it's not really making any fundamental change to the race, because the group in front, you can see from the shape of the group in front that they're not trying to stay away, which is why there's an opportunity for some of the smaller teams to try and establish a second breakaway.
Look how he tried to catch the slipstream there of the motorbike passing him.
And if it had been me, I'd have done the same thing.
Of course, if you're a pro bike rider, you take every advantage on the road. Whether
it's important to say that it's not up to the riders to not do that. It's up to the motorbikes and the team vehicles to not give shelter. If you're a rider, you're kind of there we go. You're kind of entitled to do it. At this point, the bikes are coming through. It doesn't make that much of a difference. The point where I see it, and I think it does influence the race, is quite often you have the motorbike that's at the head of a peloton. It's chasing a break. That can be more of a problem, but not today. Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
No. That's good that you explain it. I think the peloton is more than happy to have a new breakaway up the road for now. We enter the local circuit at 22 kilometers to go. We of course had that breakaway of 5 riders with Daniel Stampe, Matthias Malmberg, Manuel Oyoli, Mes Landbu and Marius Holbolt. They never really got more than a minute 30, minute 45, and were caught around 72 kilometers from the line. Then we had that major crash, and now we are basically repairing that situation with several groups out on the road. So I think the major teams will be happy with the situation to have one, and there's now 2 riders trying to bridge across to the front to have a little bit of a steady situation before we go onto that circuit, 35 kilometers from now.
I think they'd be happy with that. I mean, this isn't the whole race. There's still clearly groups behind who may not get back on. Depends a little bit exactly what happens at the front of the race. If a break goes and the pace backs off a little bit, the groups behind may make it back. May of course be, if they're well off the back, it could be quite good fun when we get to the finishing circuit, because it's only 6.5 kilometers long. So if they were kind of 10 minutes off the back, they would be arriving at the finishing circuit just in time to jump into the front group again. Not allowed to do that, needless to say.
If you just tuned in, and that's very well possible if you just watch the Col des Portes stage in Tour de l'Ain, you might be wondering, who are the guys in green? Of course, there's a few unknown teams here, national teams that you might not be, or continental Danish teams that you might not be all too familiar with. But those guys in green, yeah, they're quite well known because they're actually UNOX Mobility, but they're racing with a new jersey this week, sponsored by their soft drinks sponsor Faxe Kondi, and they did it to perfection. They got the green gloves, they got the green Ridley bikes, they got the green helmets. They're completely prepared, and I just saw a picture of staff, Michael, who are in green tracksuits.
Oh, well done. By the time you've done the bikes, the tracksuits are kind of fairly small effort.
That is true.
A slightly spongy tire.
But yeah, really good job there by UNOX, really putting the spotlight onto a new sponsor. They add it to their normal kit. Normally it's on their shoulders, the Faxe Kondi logo. You saw that in the Tour de France, but they now went completely green and rainbowy for this race.
Well, yeah, it's a good looking kit. I prefer their regular kit, but
yeah,
if you're going to have a change kit, that looks okay. And
it's
easy
love
to
the
pick out.
711 one. The 711 one was my favorite.
That was fun.
But you can do that. There was always a rule that you could do it twice a year. I think it's more like unlimited change now with the UCI, that you can change your kit, or is it still like limitations to it?
I think Brian might know. Seems to happen fairly regularly. Yeah, Brian Smith will probably know. It kind of seems harmless. And if it's a way to kind of keep sponsors happy and a way to kind of keep driving sponsor money through teams, I don't really see the harm. But having said that, I suppose I would mind as a commentator if every team turned up to every race in different kit. It would get a bit wearing. I think the needs of team to have a clear brand probably stop that happening. But as a change kit once in a while for a national race or for a Grand Tour,
Tour de France,
yeah, it doesn't upset me.
we have the names of our new 3 leaders. It was Sebastian Nielsen of the Colo Quick team who initiate this new breakaway of 3. And he's got 2 riders with him, Mes Andersen and Matthias Malmberg, yet again of the SWAT Club, the same team we already saw in the breakaway today, with the same Matthias Malmberg and his Italian teammate Manuel Oioli. 37 seconds as that second group is now coming back to the front. So the group with Wout van Aert and Lukas Kubiš.
Yeah, so we've kind of done all that, and we're kind of beginning the race again at 55 kilometers with a new breakaway.
Convenient.
And a whole new, it's like a race reset. There are almost certainly riders off the back of this group, because that doesn't look to me like 142 riders. So there will still be groups, I think, off the back chasing on after that crash, which was. I'm kind of hoping everyone's all right after that crash. It was a horrible one.
Yeah, I haven't heard if that Alpecin Prematec rider who was sitting on the street, on the ground there, whether he got back up. We didn't get any information if somebody has abandoned. Looks like we have a flat tire there for Pietro Matteo, the Italian rider of Visma. But since things have settled a little bit here, we yeah, you can have a flat tire, and like Casper Pedersen does right now, call your team car for some refreshments. Because after a very chaotic 25 kilometers and bottles all over the road, you might be without a bottle at the moment, and you need your team car to get restocked.
Yeah, and the team cars have only come up with that second group, so if you were in the first group, you haven't had team car service for the last 20 kilometers.
So now with the return of Wout van Aert to the first group, and Alpecin Prematec still with quite a few riders, including Thibaut Grosso there in fourth place. That is a great circuit for him as well that we have in Aalborg. We continue on the Halkær Lake for a little bit of peace and quiet. I knew we could rely on Brian Smith. You can change your kit, Michael, 3 times for 3 events per year. So we went from 2 to 3. It's not endless, which is for the best. Also, like, environmentally, to not throw away perfectly fine pieces of kit because you have to change back and forth again.
You can sell quite a lot of it. There's plenty of websites that sell ex-team bits and pieces. An awful lot of it will find a new home.
Here's a flat tyre, so it was not Casper Pedersen asking for the team car for refreshments, but for a new rear wheel.
Yeah, I've seen a few punctures in the last few kilometres.
A lot of these roads, of course, this is asphalted, but a lot of these by roads are gravelly. You know, the driveways that people have, like you can see there. So yeah, these stones end up on the road as well.
There are clearly a few sharp bits and pieces on the roads around here. Taking the wheel rather than the bike, so no great panic. The race isn't on, and he's going to end up in the car. So happy to keep the bike. Although his back tire no longer matches his front tire, I don't know if that'll upset him.
2 SWAT Club riders with Mess Anderson and Manuel Oioli. I keep wanting to say Aioli, but that is a different thing.
I keep wanting to say Swatters, which is different again.
I didn't know what it stood for, but it is actually Solo Vantaggio Club. So it's a big cycling community, actually. And with that cycling community, a bit like we have in the Netherlands with the Beat Cycling Club, now also comes a continental cycling team. And this is the first time they have been invited to the Tour of Denmark, because they have a few Danish riders on the team with Kasper Andersen, Mess Andersen, the man in the breakaway right now, Matthias Malmberg, also in the break, and Oliver Knudsen. So it's a very Danish-oriented squad that they brought here.
Yeah, it's best known for Filippo Conca was riding for them when he won the Italian Nationals as an amateur last year, before then signing to a World Tour team. So that's always what I see the SWAT Club. That's always what I think of them for, is exactly how they turned out in force to help Conca win that championship, because they did a brilliant job of it.
Yeah, they had 3 in a break in the first group of 5. So yeah, that was really cool.
Lotto up here, taking an interest in this.
Yeah, they have quite a few
multiple
candidates.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Might also be the day for Toon Aert's first pro victory on the road. It was quite close to that in the Giro, but
I'd enjoy that.
Me too. We are approaching the final hour of racing here on stage 1 of the Tour of Denmark. Our defending champion sadly is not here. That is Mads Pedersen. Might still be a little bit fatigued from, well, not completely anonymous Tour de France, so to say. I think he was in the breakaway of 8 of the 21 stages.
I did. It was like a textbook exercise in how you win the green jersey in a modern Tour de France. I thought he was brilliant. I really enjoyed watching him over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, in the bunch, of course he won a stage, you know, he got 4 points for the stage, but in the bunch sprints itself, he didn't really get all that many points. It was all the intermediate points and overcoming Cat 1, Cat 2 climbs in the first 60 kilometers of a race. That is what really set him apart from the other contenders for the green jersey, like Philipsen and Girmay, who ended up in the Gruppetto on the first climb of the day. Yeah,
and they were more competitive in the final sprints. But, you know, I actually like it when the green jersey competition, or any points competition, to be honest, works out like that. And it becomes a thing in its own right rather than a sort of an incidental from winning stages. It's, you know, it's also quite nice to see Richard Carapaz win the King of the Mountains title rather than it ending up with Tadej Pogacar, which it could very well have done. I like that too. It just meant the supplementary competitions at the Tour this year were quite exciting.
So what we are going towards now is our first hill sprint. They refrain from calling it the King of the Mountains in this competition. So it's a hill sprint competition sponsored by Novo Nordisk, which on its own is responsible for about, I think it was 30% of the GDP of the entire country of Denmark.
Really?
At a certain point when Ozempic was at its absolute, like, most popular. Now you've got other brands like Mounjaro and Eli Lilly, it does Mounjaro, but at the absolute height of the Ozempic craze, yeah, as Novo Nordisk was, I think it was worth more than the entire government budget of the country of Denmark.
That sounds like a lot. It's a team, of course, composed of type 1 diabetics, because Novo Nordisk also make diabetic medications, so it's the kind of the USP of Team Novo Nordisk.
Yeah, they also here with, of course, their own team, Team Novo Nordisk, with Sam Brand, Dec Irvine, Juan José Lopez, Bailey McDonald, Antonio Polga, Umberto Poli, and Filippo Ridolfo.
Haven't seen much of them so far today, I'd have to say.
No, they're usually quite regulars in breakaways, aren't they, to go for the distinctive jerseys in these kind of races. This is also a regular man in many a breakaway, Samuele Soccorato, but he's trying to bridge across to that first group, and it kind of feels like he's stuck in what the Belgians call a chasse patate.
And that would mean...
You don't know what a chasse patate is?
Not a literal translation of it.
Oh wow, it's a completely fruitless chase.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're just useless chasing. You're basically stuck in between, in no man's land.
Yeah, wild goose chase.
The literal translation is a potato chase.
Yeah, wild goose chase would be the colloquial equivalent. Yeah, okay.
A wild goose chase, yes.
No, I mean he has been trying to get across there for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And hasn't been exactly ripping it across. Although, you know, the fact that he is still on that mission, it shows you a little bit the way the pace has come off here. Although, having said that, the brake's still only sitting at 50 seconds. I mean, second brake of the day never usually gets that much rope, but I'm surprised they haven't got a minute or a minute 5, a minute 10.
Our three leaders are making their way to the first categorized climb of the day, 1.2 kilometers long, which, if I look over my sheet of paper, actually makes it the longest climb of the entire Tour of Denmark. Categorized climb days.
Although it's one of those, I looked at that and then I went and looked at it on VeloViewer, and on VeloViewer I hummed and hawed and thought about it, and I decided it was 600 meters long. You know, any climb, it just depends where you decide it starts and where you decide it finishes. I reckon it was a 600-meter climb at 5.5%, but
the rope book says it's a 1.2-ish.
Yeah, but you can. This is one of our colleague Carlton's regular complaints, is that you can, any hill can be any length and any steepness. It just depends on what bit of it you measure.
And also, there can be proper mountains, and they decide to just not include them in any classification. And I would just feel robbed if I was after the polka dots. My
absolute favourite was the Tour of Britain last year, where there was a hill preem, a King of the Mountains preem, that was 2 hills. So there was, you went over one summit, down, and then up another one, and they took the whole thing, which meant it was 1.5 kilometres at 0.01%. But you did actually have to do 2 climbs to get there.
We saw Manuel Oyoli, one of our 5 riders in the initial breakaway of the day, showing some skin there, involved in one of the crashes. So
I assume he was caught up in the big crash.
Yeah.
Just going back through the group. So that was kind of, you wouldn't be very pleased if you got caught early in the day, halfway back down the bunch, big crash takes you down. That's not a good stage one.
And of course, on the side of your leg, on your hip, can also be a very a difficult place. Of course, it looks like nothing's fractured there, but if you turn over in your bed and you lost quite a lot of skin on that side of your hip, you constantly feel it.
Yeah, no, there's one thing you think about getting in the early break for the day is it's going to be a nice, safe day. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. There we are.
A real sizable group here at the moment. See some of the riders on bottle duty. Former Danish time trial champion, or was he? Johan Pris Pedersen. I think it's still up in the air whether he was actually the Danish time trial champion, there with number 15. And there is the team in yellow with Wout van Aert. That is that group of 4 in yellow, one of the teammates at the front. And basically the entire Intermarché Lotto team. And like we said before, Michael, they have options. Toon Aerts, everybody would love a first pro road win for Toon. But also Mathys Chrisel, the French rider, is good on this kind of terrain that we have. Milan Menten is a good sprinter. Mathieu Kokkelman is a great sprinter. The same goes for the new young Christophe. Same goes for Lionel Tamino. All of them have got a pretty good kick when it comes to the line. So we could say, okay, they're riding for Toon Aerts. He's the last man in this position, but it could also be the man in front of him, and that is Milan Menten, with Toon Aerts kind of protecting his rear wheel. Yeah,
I mean, it could equally be Mathieu Kokkelman. I mean, Toon Aerts probably also their best prospect from maybe trying to defend a GC position. So if he was in a position today to get some bonus seconds, that's probably their target for today. But yeah, if the competition was to bring the sprinters to finish 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th, I mean, Lotto Intermarché have brought that team. They've got a lot of sprint talent, but nobody who is kind of the, you know, they don't have a Tom Krabbe, for example. They don't have someone who's an obviously outstanding bunch kicker on a fast day. So again, they'd like a hard race, and they'd like this final finishing circuit to be as tough as possible. And this is also a race that sometimes is decided by the tiniest of margins. In 24, it was just 1 second between Arnaud Delis and Magnus Kort. In 22, it was 4 seconds between Laporte, who won it, ahead of Sheffield. 2019, Niklas Larsen, now with Unibet Rosa Rockets, just 11 seconds between him and Jonas Vingegaard here in the Tour of Denmark 7 years ago. So, yeah, last year there was a big gap with Miss Pedersen going completely insane, but usually it comes down to seconds.
Also 2021, when Remco Evenepoel lapped an entire peloton on a crit, was
yes. Yeah, I
was
mean,
also
there
a big gap.
are time bonuses. It's 10, 6 and 4 on the finish line, and 3, 2 and 1 at the 2 intermediate sprints. We've seen the first intermediate sprint today was mopped up by the breakaway. Second intermediate sprint is going to be on the first passage of the finish line. I think 13 k's to go. I got that right? I think that's right. So there is another 13 seconds of bonuses left to be taken. Interesting to see if anyone back in the group wants to pull this break back in time to take those bonuses on the finish line.
Yeah, we're also we're all already in the first of the laps. Well, we enter the circuit and then we have our bonus sprint on the line with 3 laps to go. I think these guys will be caught by then when we get to the local circuit.
I'd have thought so, because they just haven't been given that much rope, to be quite honest. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think the nature of the race has changed a bit since we've turned back up towards the northeast, because this is broadly tailwind. The roads are a little bit wider, and it's a very different looking race from the one that produced that crash in the crosswinds at the minute.
Yeah, are we heading back to Aalborg now with a tailwind? There's not really
broadly,
a sprint going on,
overall
is it?
it's a tailwind. it zigs and zags backwards and forwards a little bit, but broadly speaking, we're downwind from here on in towards the circuit.
It was Matthias Malmberg picking up the 6 points here at the hill sprint, with his teammate in second place, Andersen. I'm a sucker for a good paint job on the bike, and this looks absolutely stunning. Look at that. That is a pretty picture. Three Danish riders here. They've got the flags and the confirmation. But we've got 2 Cat 1 climbs left to go on that local circuit. It's called Molleparken. And as Michael explained before, maximum gradient around 14, 16%?
16 was the highest I found looking at it on Velour. So yeah, it's not to be trifled with, but it's not 16% for very long is the thing, because the whole climb is only about 700 meters. But it's one of those, I mean, it's got a real kind of, it's not cobbled, but that's all that's missing really for kind of a Flandrian feel to it. It's relatively narrow, it's quite steep, urban climb with a narrow turning onto it, so it's got a real classics feel to it.
Samuele Zoccorato still in front of the peloton, the Italian of the MBH Bank team. But it's Felix Orden Christoph, indeed related to Alexander Christoph, his brother, followed by Niklas Behrens. And here is Wout van Aert, the man that everybody's looking at for today. He's got high ambitions for the race. He's not here to just do a few training laps. He really wants to win it, or Christophe Laporte. He was, of course, scheduled to race the Tour de France. It would have added some extra spice to, especially stage 21, to have Wout van Aert. I also find it really interesting that Mathieu van der Poel, who watched that stage last year on the Montmartre climb when Wout van Aert won it, had been thinking about that particular stage for basically the entire year and wanting to be there. He was, of course, out with that lung infection that he had.
He had a lung infection, lung condition, which was
pretty bad, and kept him out of the racing for quite a long time. And he watched it on television, and well, yeah, we all know what happened on Sunday.
Well, I think if you were Mathieu van der Poel, you'd have watched that Montmartre circuit in 2020-25 and thought that's got me written all over it.
And it did.
I love that stage now, because it always used to be the boring stage with usually a great sprint, but it was one of those. If you watch the last 10 minutes, you saw 95% of the race, and I love the fact that now it feels like a live stage. The only thing I didn't like this year was they neutralised it very early for the GC times. And I kind of look and I think if it's too dangerous for the GC riders to ride, then should anybody be riding it? Or if it's safe enough to be a race, should we be neutralising it for the GC? I thought, yeah, why are we not neutralising this at 5, for GC times at 5 kilometres? It would seem reasonable. But anyway, I'm being picky. And maybe if they hadn't done that, we would have seen a different denouement, because riders would just have had to ride in a slightly different way to protect GC riders. 3 kilometre rule today, just while we're on the subject.
Flat as a pancake.
Any incidents? Well, we've got that climb.
I know. But it's
I mean, I tell you what, I keep talking about this climb, and we're going to get there and ride over, and you're going to say, what climm?
And maybe we just blink and it's over.
Yeah.
It's that kind of climb. It's a big ring thing anyways.
I don't know. Maybe for you.
I'm on top form at the moment. Oh, absolutely. No, most definitely not.
I was going to say it's an easier parcours for the Tour of Denmark this year than last year. There was more climbing last year and a couple of uphill finishes. We've got one uphill finish this year, which is it's going to be on Friday on the Queen stage, is an uphill finish. We had, I think, 2 uphill finishes last year, maybe 3 actually. It was a bit tougher. This year has a slightly more sprinty feel to it. But as we were saying earlier, the Tour of Denmark, you always think, oh, well, that's 4 sprints and a time trial. And quite often, actually, the race does break up into kind of some smaller groups and smaller group sprints and things. It's usually a more interesting race than you kind of expect when you look at the kind of the elevations per stage.
And it's always the riders who make the race. You know, they find places on the course to really create a race. We just saw some echelon action. We've got more exposed terrain to come, and the Queen stage, of course, with the Kiddersvej on Friday, which is a pretty steep climb and always guaranteed spectacular. But these are the kind of prime roads. If you have a little bit of crosswind here, this is like the Mure.
Yeah. And as you sort of say, at the minute it's kind of just zigzags, because we're using sort of the smaller roads. There are 1 or 2 highways we could take, but we're doing it this way. So it's got that Northern European feel. These kind of lots of right angles where you can see the front of the bunch across the field. If you're stuck at the back, because this is a long stretched out group at the minute.
Well, we are in Northern Europe. We're actually in Denmark on the Northern Jutland part of the country. This is the northernmost stage, as things are falling apart yet again after that corner. When look at the shape of that punch, oh my, it might break, and it's already breaking there in about 20th position. I'm
just wondering if
we're back to
it's I mean it's mainly tailwind at the minute, but just as we zigzag backwards and forwards, it's just people getting caught out at the back just for the accelerations out of the corner.
This might not be the ideal moment to get yourself a bottle, but it kind of also learns us that he is not the protected rider today.
No, I mean, I think they'll also be really looking towards Wout van Aert for the GC here, because if you think about that stage on Friday, it's a Christophe Laporte type stage as well, to be honest. But I think Van Aert back racing and trying to hone his form coming into the Vuelta, it's not a surprise to me at all that he would be Visma Lease Bike's protected rider.
And it's been over 3 months as well since Christophe Laporte was actually in a bike race. He had a training accident, tore his quad, a large muscle in the leg, which you have to be really careful with the recovery, because it's quite an important muscle if you ride your bike or even just walking. So he's been out of racing for over 3 months, and of course on day one asking you to be the protected rider, that might happen to Tadej Pogacar coming back into racing in Strade Bianche, but not for Christophe Laporte. It's all about finding form and hopefully get a good few last months of the season, because last year for the Frenchman it was also a bit of a disaster with injury and illness, being out for such a long time. He didn't have the best of luck, Christophe Laporte, but he had a stellar classic season. So the talent of course is still there. 36 kilometers left to go, and that means that we're now 14 kilometers out from our local circuit in the town of Aalborg, which is Denmark's 4th largest city on the southern shore of the Limfjord. As Michael already indicated, has been a very important town for over a millennium, of course, with the Vikings there over 1,000 years ago, but also it flourished in the second part of the Middle Ages, where they yeah, got really, really rich by shipping until basically the fjord got too shallow. Basically what happened to Bruges as well.
Yeah, and always been kind of a fishing port, very industrialised in the 20th century. Lots of concrete manufacture and things like that. So it's the town website says something, I think, about it being a very popular, despite its industrial past, it's become a very popular tourist destination. And I think if I were trying to attract tourists, I would avoid the phrase "despite its industrial past." But it's actually quite attractive. We'll see some shots of it, I'm sure, when we get in. The finish isn't any terribly remarkable. We're not sort of finishing in the town square or something. We've got a lovely flat, wide, straight run-in, so it's very safe. But it means, unfortunately, we're not really getting to see the best of the town because it's got some kind of nice old buildings and things that I was looking at online last night.
Chris Juul Jensen, winner 11 years ago, is not particularly having a very lucky day here in the opening stage of the Tour of Denmark. He was held up by the crash, his chain completely jammed between the frame and the big ring. And then he had to chase. He had to wait an awful lot of time for a mechanic to help him. He was very unhappy with the situation. And now also finding himself all the way at the back of the bunch. But look at this shape here. This is going really, really fast now.
Yeah, no, we're moving quite quickly. Quite sure I haven't seen a gap to the break for a few moments on the screen, but I imagine the number is getting smaller. It's also maybe those gaps at the front. There's maybe just a little bit of a lack of unanimity about exactly how hard they're trying to chase. Because again, they caught the early break sooner than they really wanted to, and they probably don't, in an ideal world, want to catch these guys very much before they get to the circuit. I suppose we're maybe looking a little bit towards the first of the climbs on the circuit, which will come at 16.8 kilometers to go. And I suppose that's not in the impenetrably distant future at this point, is it? But again, Visma Spike still on the front with Lotto Intermarché, and they have been driving this for the last 20 odd kilometers, almost since the second break of the day went away after the crash. Other fun fact about Aalborg, Jose, is that it's where Jean Utzon, who designed the Sydney Opera House, came from. Noted Danish architect, a lot of noted Danish architects, obviously. But Utzon designed Sydney Opera House. There was a centre in Aalborg devoted to his works, which if you see it from a helicopter shot, you will have no trouble recognising. You can see just from the flags in the background that we're a lot less wind's dropped. What it is there is a tailwind, so not very much influence from the wind for the rest of the day. It'll be slightly more influenced by the finishing circuit. It's generally quite wide roads in the finishing circuit, narrow on the little climb, a little bit narrow off the top of the climb, but generally reasonably wide urban roads. And a very straightforward run-in with the last sort of 2.5 kilometers it's got one right-angled right-hand bend on it, but otherwise it's almost dead straight, dead flat. Looks kind of a nice, safe, very fair sprint. We've had a lot of chat this year, you say, about dangerous sprints and corners in the finale and so on. And this definitely not that. Should be about as safe as it gets in terms of designing a parcours. That's not to say that we won't see anything or any crashes or anything, but there's certainly nothing you could point at and say, ooh, that's dangerous, that shouldn't be there.
But we get an opportunity to see it no less than 3 times before the actual sprint, which also helps in safety, of course. I said, well, when we get to the local circuit at 22 kilometers, they probably will have caught these 3 riders up front, Mess Andersen, Matthias Malmberg and Sebastian Nielsen, but still 50 seconds. It's stabilizing around the 50 seconds minute mark right now.
Yeah, if Robbie McEwen was, he would be critiquing the denier of the flags, or the weight of the material, because he feels that all flags should have the same weight of material, so you can judge the wind accurately. I mean, really, what he wants is a row of windsocks the whole way along the course.
We all have our little peculiar kind of quirks, don't we? But we love Robbie nonetheless. Sprinters are always interested in the wind. Going to be a tailwind on the finishing straight today, for what it's worth. Although we haven't been seeing all that much wind in the last few kilometers. We've seen the odd flag, but nothing that's been flapping too vigorously. 31k to go. It was the man in the middle of this lead group, Sebastian Nielsen, who attacked when the 2 groups basically came back together after the big crash that we had. And he was quickly joined by 2 teammates of the SWAT club, with Mess Andersen and yet again Matthias Malmberg, a man who was already in the breakaway of the day earlier today.
Yeah, he actually crossed to that break after it had gone, so he had quite a hard day out, because he didn't go with that break when it first went up the road. He crossed to that break, and he's crossed to this break too. You have to give him credit. He's determined to be in the break.
He took some bonus seconds earlier today. Oh. Well, this is a nice white line, like you said. We don't have outsticking barrier feet, and a clear line to a clear view to the line, just like you said.
Yep. And a lot of light blue bucket hats. Leader's jersey, which you'll see tomorrow, is kind of that colour, so get used to it.
Of course, the Danish fans, they are really, really passionate about bike riding, as are the Norwegians, by the way. So there will be lots and lots of sound, lots and lots of noise there on the finish line here in Aalborg.
There are 48 Danish riders in this race. Field starting this morning of 145, 48 of whom are Danish, which is incredibly to me is down two riders from last year. Last year there were 50 Danish riders in the Tour of Denmark. So it's interesting exactly how a lot of the riders and teams, the Danish riders really are keen to come and ride here and support this race. I mean, you get it with any national tour, particularly Denmark, or sure, Britain, for example, is a little bit the same, where there really is only one top-level pro race. But yeah, a lot of support from the Danish riders. And you think about we're missing 1 or 2. Obviously, like Mads Pedersen, who we've mentioned, for example, isn't here. I suspect would quite like to be, not having done the tour, but I think he maybe quite like the schedules to have worked out so that he could be here.
Niklas Behrens there at the front of the bunch for the Visma Lease Bike team. They're here with Wout van Aert. We mentioned him quite a few times. The other riders, Menno Huizing, Christophe Laporte, Pietro Matteo, Ashlyn Berry, the American rider, and Jonas Kind Hørdal, the Norwegian of the team. A little bit of a mix there between the Devo squad and the World Tour team.
Yeah, same with 1 or 2 of the other teams. Little Trek have got a couple of Devo squad riders up here. Jakob Soderquist finished 2nd here last year. I think was actually a Devo team rider officially when he came to ride this race. So
he was most definitely, because there was no room for him on the World Tour team, so they kept him on the Little Trek Devo squad for another year. But now he's a World Tour pro. Despite the speed, Michael, we are on the slowest schedule, which is still a very commendable 45 kilometers an hour. But the fastest schedule was at 47, and we only have about 1,200 meters of elevation according to VeloViewer. But with the wind being, well, about 20 kilometers an hour, we are on a big loop here on Jutland. So we've had tailwind, crosswinds, but also headwinds that kind of just,
and the
influence the average speed.
And the headwinds were in the first half and the tailwinds were in the second half. So it probably is only going to get quicker from here on. And of course, in 5 kilometers, we're onto the circuit where it becomes a bit less of an influence. But the pace on the circuit is probably going to be quite high. For the minute, the break still hanging out around 50 seconds. There was a point where it looked like that was coming in again, but an equilibrium seems to have been achieved for a few moments at least.
Malmberg, he picked up 2 seconds at that Skoda bonus sprint that we had halfway into the race at 95 kilometers. So he could go and take a potential 3 more, which would, if he finishes in the peloton, of course, would get him into the top 5 of GC.
Oh, that'd be nice. And scores him a few points, presumably, in the points competition. Although that's going to get swamped by the finish.
Yeah, it's 15 for the winner today.
15 for the winner today, so yeah, the bonus seconds are probably more use.
This is Casper Pedersen. Needs the team car again. He already had a flat, now he needs a drink. The Danish national team, very strong team with this man from Sudal Quickstep. We have Rasmus Sorbiak Pedersen, who is with, I think, the Decathlon. Gustav Wang of XCS Astana, Chris Juul Jensen and Anders Vollegger of Jayco Alula, and then 2 young Red Bull Bora Bora rookies.
I'll help you out there.
We'll get ready before the Tour de l'Avenir to get that one that one right, because I lost it a little bit at that point. But also a little train coming up for the NSN cycling team with Riley Sheehan, Dion Smith, Itamar Einhorn, Cote, Schultz, Nick Schultz, Floris van Tricht and Jens Verbrugge.
They had Corbin Strong on their squad until yesterday, and Corbin Strong would have been an interesting rider around some of the stages this week. Sadly, they pulled him yesterday.
6 kilometers to go to our intermediate sprint, and 3.5 until we enter the local circuit. The sprint is on the finish line, so we basically enter that local circuit about midway into the circuit. That is 6.5 kilometers in total. The boys in green are moving to the front as well. If you missed that small piece of information, that is Uno-X Mobility this week in green. And of course in the burgundy is, as always, Modern Adventure Pro Cycling. Here we are with Aalborg, 4th largest city of town, and you said it was rather industrial.
Most of the 20th century certainly was pretty industrial. They make a lot of wind turbine blades and things here now. It's one of their major industries, yeah.
Is Vestas a Danish brand?
I think so.
Sounds Swedish.
It all sounds kind of Scandinavian to me, so.
Ah, well.
But yeah, nearly onto the finishing circuit. As you say, we're joining the finishing circuit pretty much halfway around the lap. It is a clockwise lap. We sort of in commentary always say if it's clockwise or anti-clockwise the finishing circuit. I'm not actually sure how much difference that really makes to watching the race, but we get to the finishing circuit, we'll turn left, and then we'll do a big clockwise 6.5 kilometer clockwise loop with finish line at one side of it and the hill at the other, basically.
But you know that I completely rely on you and anything map related. I can't exist without like a GPS bike computer and Google Maps.
Yeah, the ability to read a map's pretty much all I have, so that works quite well.
And I'll add a little bit extra so that we'll get to the finish line in the end. Clockwise it is.
Clockwise, so.
Yeah.
Last turn before the finish, obviously, is going to be a right turn, which will not surprise you if it's a clockwise circuit. But I say it's about 1 kilometer to go. There's a right-hand turn. But going from a narrower road onto a wider road, which is a sort of a slightly safer way to be doing it, although it does a little bit depend if people are going to put random signs in the road, like that roadwork sign, which
Is this our
Seemed a little bit close
categorised
to the
climb?
race.
3 kilometres out from the line? I think this is it. No, we're not on the circuit net.
No, not on
we
the circuit yet, no. I'll tell you when we get there.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate a little bit of help there.
Still very much the same teams at the front. We have quite a few teams who are keen just to take this on. A little bit surprised that Lotto Intermarché have been quite as present at the front. I thought they may be happy to let particularly Visma Lease bike, maybe Alpecin and Little Trek and one or two of the other teams take this on, but they have been they haven't necessarily been on the front, but they have been the team with the most numbers in the front positions. So they clearly have plans for the day, almost certainly, as we think, with Toon Aerts. And it's a circuit that would suit him. I'm always, this year, whatever else he does this year, I'm almost certainly going to remember best for finishing second in that Giro stage that Alex Segart won with the Flyer in the last couple of kilometres. So Alex Segart crossed the line, and I think Toon Aerts, I think he sort of thought he was going to win it. I think he looked up the road in time to realise that Alex Segart was there, but when he was and I think when he launched his sprint, he thought he was sprinting to win. But at least he realised what was going on quickly enough not to put his arms in the air. Yay! Going well, actually.
Yeah, some good watts there on the cycle path. Looks like a youngster up there. Moment of his life there, Michael.
Yeah, so I always love to see that. I always love to see that. As long as it's safe, as long as somebody's not doing it while weaving in between kind of pavement cafe tables or something. But it's always a bit of a thrill, I think, if you're a young rider, just to ride alongside the bunch for a moment.
And it was a very short stint because this is where the bike path ends, and we see all sorts of spectators there on the side of the road. So
he's probably back there weaving in between them right now. I hope not. Let's assume not.
Our three leaders with Mes Andersen, Mathias Malmberg and Sebastian Nielsen. Mes Andersen is the taller of the two SWAT, now I'm doing it again, SWAT club riders. And, Swatters. And Malmberg, the man here with number 175 at the back of this group of three, already has got 2 bonus seconds, and he's getting into position there on the wheel of his teammate. Sebastian Nielsen is the other rider at the front of the Colo Quick team, always in those typical referee black and white striped jerseys. Have had that design for many, many years. The jersey, we have a blue leaders jersey, you can see it in the distance there, a green points jersey, and then a green polka dot jersey for the hill climb competition, and a white jersey, as it should be, for the best young rider born after the 1st of January 2004.
As a warning, the points competition jersey is a very dark green and is going to look exactly like the Novo Nordisk team.
Yes,
it's going to be really hard to spot.
It's the same Skoda colour as the Tour de France, basically.
Yeah, I hope so. It looks darker on the Tour of Denmark website, but it probably is the same colour because it's the sponsor. On the other hand, the GC jersey stands out beautifully, so it's going to be easy to see.
Most definitely. We are 800 metres away from the bonus sprint. 3, 2 and 1 second. There's points on offer there as well. The gap has now gone down to 39, 37 seconds. So these guys are going to sprint for it. The smallest of the two SWAT club riders is Mathias Malmberg. He's also a track rider, Team Pursuit with Team Denmark. European champion even there on that squad a couple of years ago. It looks like his bigger teammate is going to do the lead out for him. There we have it. Is Sebastian Nielsen even interested in those points? There's a little bit of an understanding going on there, isn't there, Michael?
Yeah, I think they've negotiated this. Oh, no, they haven't.
Ooh, that was close. Oh, that was just a show.
I think that was for the benefit of the crowd. But yeah, that's the finish line, which we will be seeing a couple of times more before the finish.
So that might be a moment to go over the sprinters that we have in this race. There's quite a few of them, since a lot of these stages probably end up in a bunch kick of sorts, rather a big group or a slightly smaller one. Visma Lease a Bike are racing here with Wout van Aert. It's not the pure speed sprinter, is Wout van Aert. He might have loved a little bit more elevation in this finish straight, I assume.
I would have thought so, or at least a tougher finishing circuit. And I kind of the same would go for Christophe Laporte, who's also a sort of slightly sprintery side of a classics rider for Visma Lease a Bike. But yeah, they've been riding all day. They will also obviously, you know, the bonus seconds, if you're interested in the GC, you'll also be up trying to see what you can do about that.
Work done by this young man for the entire day. He's been working at the front. Look at the mineral deposits there for Matthias Norsgaard.
And can I just say, what an incredibly long stem he's got.
Yeah, he's one of the tallest riders out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that must be a 14 of sorts, maybe.
Oh, it's longer than that. That's a 16. That's a 16 or a 17 or something comical. That's a one-off bespoke. Somebody's done them that specially. You can't buy those.
No, that's
well,
absolutely.
You can somewhere, I'm sure, but you know, it's not a standard part.
No, normally it kind of ends with 14, doesn't it? 15. Never mind. That is tech speak, as we. Don't worry about it. That's why people. That's why people love you, Michael. SWAT Club here for the first time. They take part in the Tour of Denmark. Of course, Team Colorquick has been part of the race for many, many years. But they're really showing the colors of the team. They were part of the first breakaway with 2, and now also part of this breakaway with 2 riders. So, yeah, really adding some spice to it. Well done to the SWAT Club.
And probably tomorrow and the next day too.
That was very well possible. They've got 7 riders to choose from. A few Italians and a few Danes.
Crash.
Ooh.
And the subject of Team Colorquick.
Yeah, even worn out the entire white stripes there.
That's
of the Severn crossing.
Mats Lambo, who was in the break earlier. So that's the second rider from the break who's gone down today, which is unfortunate.
There's a lot of crashes today, actually.
More than you would. Yeah.
More than you would expect on a day like this.
There are quite a lot of riders coming into this race having not raced very much through July, because we just don't have, because of the Tour, we don't have that many races. So maybe a little bit of ring rustiness.
It's just the reflexes that need a little bit of fine-tuning.
Yeah, and you know, riders talk about just that kind of that race being, no, this is the climb. I told you I would tell you when we got to the climb. This is what it looks like.
It's quite recognisable. Look at the crowds here.
Yep.
That looks like Montmartre almost, but then in Aalborg.
Yeah. No, well, if I was coming to watch the race today, this is where I would come to.
Most definitely.
And
top of the climb.
King of the Mountains bid being launched.
Yeah, and the top of the climb is a little bit further away. My road book has it at 16.8, but look at the crowds. That is fantastic. As Sebastian Nielsen goes for a solo. Nielsen, of course, we had that second category climb. He picked up 2 points there, but a first cat climb is 12 points. So this is a man who is actually gunning for the polka dot jersey.
He absolutely is. No, who in Uno X has jumped across? Because somebody has. Yeah.
Like you said, pretty narrow road up here. This is about where we have the top of the climb, so there must be some flags coming up here soon.
We've been through the top of the climb. The last shot we had of him, he was crossing through the line. So there's a little kind of a plateau across the top, which is where he is now, I think.
There is the sign.
Oh no, sorry, I apologise, Jose. I think it kind of flattens out. It flattens out across the top.
It's Rasmus.
Yeah. It's also the group is not very far behind.
No, he's taking one of the SWAT Club riders in tow. That means that we already have caught one of the 2. And Sebastian Nielsen, he picked himself 12 points. He's now at 14. The next time around, so that will be in 6.5 kilometers naturally, since that is what this lap is. I don't expect Sebastian Nielsen to still be at the front. What do you think?
I'd be surprised.
Yes.
I mean, some of that gap would have come in because there'll have been a fight for position getting into the bottom of that climb because nobody wanted to get caught at the back of it. So it may well, even if he keeps both feet in this, he can probably pull out the gap to the, certainly to the main bunch a little bit over the next kilometre or two, maybe. If he's lucky, depends. This pairing in the middle are kind of a problem for him because the group will want to get them back. So I agree. I don't fancy his chances, but he's not absolutely doomed. It just depends on the dynamic. I think having those two riders in the middle is a problem. But having said that, a certain amount of looking at each other going on here, because of course we've got Uno X positioned second in the line just to interfere with things.
Menno Huizing, the man at the front at the moment, and on his wheel we have Henrik Pedersen.
Who ain't coming through to do no turn.
Nope. No, of course not. Rasmus Stiller is up there. There is Wout van Aert. Rasmus Stiller is a dangerous guy, but this kind of forces the Intermarché Lotto team, Lidl Trek, and of course Visma Leasebike to do the chasing. And the Faxe Kondi, or the Uno X Mobility riders, can just sit back.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Rasmus Stiller, you don't want to give him any space on this because it's a finish that it is a circuit that would suit him okay. It's maybe not quite tough enough, but it's, you know, you can't give him much space because he's also going to be a strong rider for the Queen Stage on Friday, where there are going to be time gaps.
Yep.
So you don't want to give him 15 seconds on the road and another 10 seconds in time bonuses on stage 1.
No, that might be a bad idea. Rasmus Stiller, he's 30, from Norway, of course, from Trondheim in the north of the country. 6 professional wins, the last one being in the cobbled stage in the 4 days of Dunkirk. I don't think our man on the wheel has got much left after being in 2 breaks this year.
I don't think he's got much left, and it's not up to him to drive this. That's Rasmus Tiller's problem. Rasmus Tiller should do less talking and more bike riding.
We have one Pedersen coming across, and we've got quite a few Pedersen in this bike race, but this is Rasmus Pedersen of the national team of Denmark. Recognizable, of course, with the helmets because his trade team is Decathlon, CMA CGM.
He's been on the ground at some point because he's lost a number.
Yeah, it was involved in a crash, that big crash, so he had a bike swap there. The team, Decathlon CMA CGM, announced a women's team today. From 2027 onwards, a pro team, so second level, and they aim to sign 12 riders. And of course, being a French team, that almost guarantees them a start in the Tour de France Femmes avec Swift in 2027. So, good results. Good news that Decathlon are not only throwing quite a big chunk of their sponsorship money at Paul Sexas, but also get a women's team out on the road.
I'm surprised they've got anything left. This man, Sebastian Nielsen, actually, is hanging on to this. We were kind of confidently predicting unfortunate things for him before he got to the climb again, but he hasn't got that. Next top climb up the climb is 10.4 kilometres to go, so he's only got a few kilometres to go to get there. He might make it.
This is the duo of Matthias Malmberg and Rasmus Stiller. Malmberg got his first professional victory just earlier this month in the Sibiu Tour, that is in Romania, where he won the opening stage. Also won the points classification, by the way. And this is the second breakaway he finds himself in. He's amassed 5 bonus seconds in total. The 25-year-old from Frederiksberg, Danish rider. And these kind of races are also sometimes like a shop window, Michael, to get 1 step or 2 steps up. Niklas Larsen did it that way, ending up with the Inuit Rosa Rockets, for example, being 3rd last year or the year before.
Now, any of the races where the kind of the big team, the World Tour teams are here, and you've got local Conti teams getting an opportunity to race, and all the more so somewhere like Denmark, where those local teams are pretty good, and they can support riders quite well. So no, absolutely. I noticed just that last shot from the back of the group. Tom Krabbe sitting almost last wheel from Flanders Baloise, number 101, who was kind of one of the sprinters who I think we had down for a result today. And Flanders Baloise were very active in the first half of the race, controlling the brake, and they've disappeared. So I'm wondering if Tom's not feeling on a good day, or if this circuit's just a little bit too... I thought it might be a bit much from depending a little how it was raced, but he certainly looks like someone who is, if he's planning to sprint, he's taking it very easy with 11 kilometers to go.
Yeah, and we did see a crash early on in the race with one of the Flanders Baloise riders. We couldn't identify who it was, but he was most definitely involved in one of the crashes. So who knows, Tom Krabbe, the dedicated sprinter. Also, it's first race back since the national championships in Belgium, which is a month ago. So, and the heat might be getting to. There might be all sorts of reasons why he's not at the front at the moment. But because this circuit should suit him to a T.
I wondered if it's raced kind of hard, it might be a little bit much. Milan van den Hout was, I think, the rider who was in the crash you're thinking of, Jose. I had the opportunity to go back and watch it again. I don't think it was Tom Krabbe. I'm fairly sure it wasn't Tom Krabbe, to be honest, but I think it was Milan van den Hout.
Well, this is our chasing trio with Rasmus Tiller, Matthias Malmberg, and now Rasmus Pedersen. And there's the peloton. But we still have Sebastian Nielsen, and he is going up the Müller-Parken climb. There we are.
That's the climb. Ooh,
12 points if he manages to reach the top of this hill sprint in first place. He's already got 14, so things are looking good for him to pick up that mounted jersey. His only rival, basically, is Matthias Malmberg, who's still somewhere up front, but I think they were just about to be caught by the bunch. Yeah, there we have a counter-attack happening. Oh, poor Sebastian Nielsen. But I think it's going to be enough for him, the 14 points that he got on the first two hill sprints, to wear that polka dot jersey tomorrow.
Yeah, it should be. Unless he's very unlucky with somebody from one of the early breaks getting across to this pair.
Well, talking about Nicolas Larsen, there he is. Former winner of this race in 2019, beating Jonas Vingegaard, who was all the way at the start of his career 7 years ago. And now everything is, well, more or less back together. Poor Nielsen, there he is. Oh, this is his teammate. This is Goodnitz. You can see on this jersey he was involved in one of these crashes. But I think you can actually do something on this climb with a little group. And if we have a little group sprint, that would, of course, suit Wout van Aert better than a big bunch kick.
It would suit him very well indeed. I mean, I think it's probably going to come back together, because I don't think the descent is fairly straightforward. I don't say that. There's one or two gaps opening up, actually, aren't there, Jose? Yeah. It's one of those climbs, if it was 200 meters longer, it would be much more decisive. It might just be short enough that the gaps never quite open up properly. Lukas Kubiš is sitting there in the front, row, actually. And
this was the last test run before we go for real the next lap around. We don't have any points anymore in the last lap towards the hill sprint competition.
Which makes sense, because you're trying to keep it open for a King of the Mountains competition.
Most definitely.
Makes a sensible way to do it.
This is Toon Aert at the back of the bunch, and the same goes for Thibaut Del Grosso. Two riders we kind of marked for today.
Yeah, very much so. Might not be hard enough for Thibaut Del Grosso. He would like a bit more of a punch-up. Certainly he'll be interested in Friday, but maybe not today.
This is one of the Kopecki brothers. Hard to say. I think it's Thomas, but let's see and wait for confirmation. Quickly followed by Christophe Laporte. Also Henrik Pedersen right on the wheel. Or is it Rasenberg? Well, let's wait for confirmation. One of the Unibet Rosa Rockets. Kubiš is really good today, isn't he? Right back on the wheel there, the Slovakian national champion. The same goes for Teutenberg there in the fifth position.
I think so,
Little track.
I could say Lukas Kubiš is one of those underestimated riders. I'm surprised he hasn't won more than he has. He's so good, particularly at these kind of tough, sort of tough circuit finishes at these kind of races.
One NSN rider also trying to get across to that first group. Then we have a strong group. This could also happen the last time around, Mac.
Oh, you wouldn't even rule out this group staying away because it's a short little circuit. And it's easy to get fooled by a circuit that's this short. You think, oh, we've got another lap and a bit to go. But look at it another way. We've only got 8 kilometers, and we've got that climb again in 4 and a bit kilometers after we've gone through the finish line the next time. So it's not impossible. This group that we're looking at right now could stay away.
There's a lot of looking around. It's not oozing confidence yet.
No, it's not, but there's another 4 chasing them, and then, I mean, the peloton's behind that again, so it's quite a decent sized gap, because this is a group that's trying to come across, which is one with Laporte in it.
Huizing, Nordhoft, 2 teammates actually from the Visma Leasebike Devo squad. They were on the same team for many years. Arling and Huizing, and this is that first group again. First race back for Christophe Laporte since the Amstel Gold Race on the 19th of April. That is a long, long time away from the peloton. Long recovery for him.
It's just not the cohesiveness in this. It's still stretched it out to 17 seconds, but there's a little bit too much looking about.
2 teammates up front of the Unibet Rosa Rockets. Henrik Pedersen there for UnoX Mobility in that green jersey. Looks like we have some sleeves there. It might be Pierre-André Coté up there, former Canadian national champion. Laporte, of course, former European champion. It's not a big gap, but we've got some big teams represented up front.
Big teams, big riders who, if they commit to this, might make a difference.
But they have to commit, just like you said. This is a little group with a very small gap. Rasmus Tiller is there. He already spent a few of his matches. And look at the blocking going on there from Visma Leasebike at the front of that bunch. Now Wout van Aert discussing...
well, the weather.
Probably not. Probably the chances of Christophe Laporte up there.
Yeah, there's also UnoX Mobility kind of at the front to get in the way. So if you've got kind of 2 of the big teams just not working at the front, but at the front, it does give these guys a fighting chance. It really is going to come down to what happens on this climb the last time up.
We have indeed Tomasz Kopecky, Lukas Kubiš, 2 Unibet Rosa Rockets riders. We have Christophe Laporte. We have Henrik Pedersen up there. Pierre-André Coté. Those are the riders up front, and of course Tim Toren-Teutenberg there of Lidl Trek, meaning that we've got a few teams represented. What do Lotto Intermarché still have in store? They did an awful lot of work about 30, 40 kilometers ago, but they're not at the front anymore. Picnic Postnel, they only have 5 riders here, and that means that Alpecin Premitech might have some riders up there. The other World 2 team not represented, but 15 seconds is a pretty sizable gap already with Laporte, with Henrik Pedersen, Pierre-André Coté, Lukas Kubiš, Tomasz Kopecky and Tim Toren-Teutenberg, who's a very dangerous rider in this group.
Yeah, Tim Toren-Teutenberg would be, for my money, the best sprinter out of this group. It depends a bit if that's going to get blunted by the climbs in this course. But it's hard to see who's really settling down to doing the chasing at the minute. It seems to be Alpecin Premier Tech, I suppose, are the team that really have to take this on now. And as you say, Lotto Intermarché have riders up there, but maybe they've spent all their matches. Seen them do that once or twice this year. But yeah, you're right, Alpecin Premier Tech.
With Plowright on the wheel of Jonas Geens. Let's see what happens on that climb. But Tim Toren-Teutenberg, of course, he's sitting at the back of this group, trying to save as much energy as he can. No, he hasn't done anything.
He hasn't been off the back. I'm surprised nobody hasn't been back to have a discussion with him about it.
Tomasz Kopecky putting in the work there for his team leader, for Lukas Kubiš. And Kubiš, like you said, he's an underestimated rider. He's always very recognizable, but actually winning a race doesn't happen all that much. He's always up there and thereabouts, but actually winning is not something that he does quite often. So Let's see what he does today. He quickly jumped across. He really leaves a good impression. They went on an altitude camp, the Unibet Rosa Rockets. Of course, they were not in the Tour de France. So this is a big race for them. And Tomasz Kopecky is the man doing the work. There is Tim Toorn Teutenberg, who also looks rather relaxed here.
He looks like he's got a little bit of spare capacity, doesn't he?
Yep.
I mean, big advantage for Lukas Kubis having a teammate in the break.
There goes
obviously.
Wout. Wout on the counter-attack here on the climb. Wout van Aert. So we got the situation here on the final lap. 4 kilometers to go, 6 leaders. That is one lapped rider of Team Novo Nordisk going to the right-hand side of the road. He's being overtaken. He's a lapped rider. This man at the front, Kopecky, initiated this attack for Lukas Kubis, but there is Wout van Aert straight onto that group. But 16 seconds, I think it's a little bit less than that at the moment, isn't it?
It looks a little bit less than that on the road. I think he's got every chance of getting across if he's kind of coming into this race with the fitness that we think he should have, because he's been out of racing for a long time, but he has been at an altitude camp. He's been working pretty hard. That's not a very big gap.
Is that the man with number 1, Søren Kragh Andersen? Yes, indeed it is. And he can barely keep the wheel there.
Kragh Andersen's really been struggling to close that gap. He went with kind of 2 lengths behind Wout van Aert, and it's taken him until now to actually get properly under the wheel. Of course, he's not going to come through and help, because the last thing he wants to do is bring is help Wout van Aert get across to Tim Toorn Teutenberg. But I think they're going to make the junction.
This is remarkable because they have Christophe Laporte up there, but like I said, Laporte has been out of bike racing for over 3 months, so they might not have the utmost confidence just yet in the former European champion. And Wout van Aert bridging across there with, well, it seems like a suffering Søren Kragh Andersen there on his wheel.
Yeah, the gap just keeps opening. I mean, the other thing, of course, for Wout van Aert is he's got one eye on the GC. Because if this group is going to stay away and keep a gap, even if he doesn't win the stage, there's the kind of the GC seconds. And as we've said before, this race is often decided by quite a small margin.
And he might also do a lead out for Laporte for the stage win and goes for the time taken towards the GC himself. But they have made the junction. That means that we've got, well, they have not made the junction just yet. I thought they were there, but they're not just yet. 2.7 kilometers to go. We have done our climb here on the local circuit, and there is the junction, meaning we've got 2 riders for Visma with Laporte and Van Aert, 2 riders for Lidl Trek with Søren Kragh Andersen and Tim Toorn Teutenberg, 2 for Unibet Rosa Rockets with Tomasz Kopecky and Lukas Kubis, and then Hendrik Pedersen in green for Uno-X Mobility and Pierre-André Côté for NSN. But this is, of course, not ideal. If they start looking at each other, the gap is still only around 15, 16, 17 seconds. Who's doing the work there in the peloton? That would be interesting to see, Michael. They look green.
I'm guessing it's, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that's Uno-X blocking. I mean, it really ought to be Alpecin Premier Tech still, but I agree that the front of that peloton has a very mid-green look to it.
21-year-old Hendrik Pedersen, no pro win for him just yet. He has been with the team since 2024 in 5th position there. We see Laporte at the front now with Teutenberg, and they take a little bit of a gap, meaning that Pierre-André Côté has to make amends there. So it's clear, Michael. The orders are clear. It's for Wout.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. There's just this group's kind of got it's got a little bit too big, and I'm kind of expecting the fact that there are riders with teammates here. It ought to be possible to keep this driving, but there's still a little bit too much looking at each other. And I know 22 seconds, 1.4 kilometers to go.
It should be enough.
It should be enough, but
and the peloton's it's still not there. They still have there.
And it depends what's happening at the front of the peloton. If anybody's really taking that on, Alpecin Premier Tech back on the front by the look of it.
Christophe Laporte, Tim Toorn Teutenberg, Søren Kragh Andersen, Lukas Kubis, Wout van Aert, Pierre-André Côté, Hendrik Pedersen and Tomasz Kopecky. They are underneath the Flamme Rouge now for the final kilometer of stage 1 of the Tour of Denmark. We're on a local circuit here in Aalborg. It's Christophe Laporte setting the pace right now for Wout van Aert in 4th position. There's still an awful lot of looking around. They might not be 100% sure, but I think there is a big enough gap. Tim Thorn Teutenberg there in 2nd wheel, on the wheel of Laporte. All the way at the back, Søren Kragh Andersen. We have Lukas Kubiš, of course, with the bunch kick. Now it's Thorn Teutenberg onto the wheel of Kopecky. Of course, Kopecky is doing the lead out for Kubiš, but it is Tim Thorn Teutenberg finding shelter behind the man from the Czech Republic. Christophe Laporte makes amends with Wout van Aert on his wheel. There is Kubiš. Pedersen as well in the green. Pierre-André Coté. The peloton will be too late. And there is a sprint for Tim Thorn Teutenberg and Wout van Aert. Wout van Aert and Lukas Kubiš. Lukas Kubiš, Wout van Aert. It's Wout van Aert who wins stage 1 of the Tour of Denmark. What a comeback that was.
That was a great sprint from Wout van Aert coming back. As I say, hasn't raced for quite a long time, and we're coming into the bunch coming in. So Alpecin Premier Tech taking that. I didn't see who that was. Was that Del Grosso? I don't think it was.
Wout van Aert, first race back after his injury and a first win, and of course a blue leaders jersey on top of it. Lukas Kubiš looked mightily strong. I would like to see the overhead view again and a repeat of that sprint, but a big smile there for him. The winner of Paris-Roubaix. His big goal of the year is in Canada, Michael. He wants the rainbow stripes. He's had them in the field in cyclocross. Let's look at this one again.
See, Lukas Kubiš, he completely ignored the lead out from his teammate. He wanted to be on Wout van Aert's wheel, and that's why Tim Thorn Teutenberg had gone a little bit too early. But Lukas Kubiš, you look at it, he looked from the head-on shot, Lukas Kubiš, as if he was going to come round Wout van Aert. From that shot, Wout van Aert, I think, always had the beating of him. And that was a pretty classy sprint, because he's out-sprinted two kind of specialist sprinters, really, with Tim Thorn Teutenberg and Lukas Kubiš. They're more flexible riders. They're not absolutely pure sprinters, but you would have expected them to maybe give Wout van Aert a harder time of that. He's come back with a bang. He's got the legs for those sort of short, sharp climb. Very, very comfortable. And now we look at Kragh Andersen trying to close the gap, even across over the top on that little plateau. It was all Kragh Andersen could do to catch him. And then the punch to do that off the back of it. Yeah.
Debriefing he's going back on in front of our eyes here. And of course, this is fantastic for the organisers here in the Tour of Denmark. There might have been a little bit of a happy dance going on when they heard that Wout van Aert was coming to Denmark. A former winner, of course. He won it 8 years ago, and he's now in that blue leaders jersey again. Ahead of Lukas Kubiš, Henrik Pedersen, Tim Thorn Teutenberg, Coté, Laporte, Thomas Kopecky, Søren Kragh Andersen and Jensen Plowright winning the peloton sprint. Anders Folliger there in 10th place, and 17 seconds already, plus the 10 bonus seconds on the line. If you know that in recent years, the differences between the numbers 1 and 2 have been 1 second, 4 seconds, 11 seconds, 13 seconds. This is already a sizable lead for Wout van Aert in GC.
Yeah, and tomorrow, very probably going to be a big bunch kick. So the most anyone's really going to get there are 10 seconds, which takes him in potentially to the stage on Friday, still with, several seconds lead. That race is going to break up a bit, almost certainly. And the form that Wout van Aert has, I would expect him to be at the front of that race. It's already looking really pretty good for him.
Well, we are not going to say that he's going to win the bike race. Let's not jinx that. This man has had enough bad luck in his career. But smart riding by Lukas Kubiš as well. And a great job by Kopecky creating this move for the Unibet Rosa Rockets.
Absolutely, and smart of Lukas Kubiš not to go with Tim Thorn Teutenberg. At this point, though, you look at it, I think, kind of those guys have got a bit of a gap out front. I mean, Laporte did a great job at this point closing this in for Wout van Aert. Maybe Tim Thorn Teutenberg didn't go soon enough, actually. When we saw the previous overhead, which we picked up later, it looked like he'd gone too soon, but I wonder if maybe he kind of waited till he heard the sound of Wout van Aert coming from behind him, and maybe just left it a little bit late and was going from too low a speed, because obviously Wout van Aert was slung into that at quite a high speed by that chase across by Christophe Laporte. Nicely worked by the two Visma Lease bike riders, actually.
And that concludes the coverage here for the Tour of Denmark. Like Michael said, tomorrow we got a pretty flat affair on our way to Skive. Sadly, we did have a lot of crashes today. Hopefully tomorrow will be a little bit less eventful for the riders in the bunch. But it was an attractive stage to watch. A lot happened. Not the good things that we saw there, but a lot of attacking. And yeah, I think exactly the winner, Michael, that the organisers had hoped for this morning. Wout van Aert wins stage 1 and is the leader. And he starts tomorrow in the blue jersey. We'll be back the same time tomorrow, Michael Hutchinson and myself, Jose Bain. So we hope to meet you again tomorrow from the Tour of Denmark when we go to Skive.
Looking forward to it.
EPA, MFR33, TNT output. 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 EPA, MFR33, TNT output.